Hoy, en un itinerario especial por Toronto, visitamos dos librerías únicas, Monkey's Paw y Another Story, con temas especializados en justicia social. En el Museo Bata nos enteramos de por qué los zapatos se convirtieron en objetos de deseo. Visitamos dos lugares dedicados a la ciencia ficción y a la cultura pop. Vamos a platicar con un grupo de teatro que cuestiona los sistemas de opresión desde el escenario. Te damos la bienvenida a Toronto. ¡Comenzamos! Se sabe que no se conoce realmente una ciudad si no visitas sus mercados. Y uno de los más emblemáticos e históricos de Toronto es el de Saint Lawrence. Para recorrerlo, nos reunimos con Bruce Bell, un ex actor y comediante que ahora se dedica a otra de sus pasiones, la historia. I've always thought that the first place you have to visit in a city to get the vibe of it, it's the market.
Oh, and you know, you're in the oldest market in Toronto. This predates the British arrived here in 1793.
Okay.
And there was already a market here, a First Nations fishing market.
Okay.
Every April and May, the Huron, the Algonquin, the Mohawk would come here to fish. So when Britain came here to colonize, they said, well, people are here already fishing, let's build a market. So the first market was built in 1803.
Okay.
And this is the 5th St. Lawrence market. And they're actually building another one across the street. We're going to have two. So this whole area is known as the St. Lawrence Market neighborhood. And there's 3 markets. Toronto was growing so fast that the markets were small and had to get bigger, bigger, bigger. So this particular market that we're in was built, this one was built in 1900.
Okay, but it's pretty
and
old.
It's massive. And this is over 100 years old. And also a lot of farmers still come here to sell their goods from the farming country, which you don't really see farmers anymore. It's all, they come in the trucks at night in supermarkets, but here we see the farmers.
That's fantastic to know where every single veggie and fruit comes from.
Yeah, because at one time, you knew the cow you were eating.
Yeah.
And you knew the chicken you were eating. We don't know, people don't know where the food comes from, but here you do. And you meet the butchers, you meet the people selling it, and there's lots of fish. And it's also a very, very multicultural market. There's lots of Italian, Polish, Ukrainian, Russian, Mexican, Latin America, lots of from different places. Toronto is an extremely multicultural city.
Yeah,
at one
the market
time,
itself reflects this.
Absolutely. But at one time it was a very British city. You couldn't even buy garlic in this market. Because garlic is like, oh my God. 500 people a day move to Toronto. And those people are coming from all over the world.
Algo que me sorprendió y me encantó de este mercado fueron los rótulos artesanales que comunican el giro de cada negocio. Y nos detuvimos justamente en el que tiene la gráfica más vistosa, la Carousel Bakery, donde nos echamos un sándwich de tocino espectacular.
So this is the number one sandwich in Toronto. It's called the pea meal bacon. It's Canadian bacon with just a little bit of mustard. It was invented in 1880 here at St. Lawrence Market as a way of preserving pork. So there's lots of steps in it to keep it. And that's why it's very tasty.
Ya con mucha energía después de esta comida, sigue el recorrido por la ciudad. What about the neighborhood? Because neighborhoods that have markets are always cooler.
This used to be this was where Toronto started, right here where we are. But then industry came. All this, what you see now, used to be steel mills, shipbuilding. Nobody lived here for most of the 20th century. It was all coal manufacturing. But in the 1960s, people were starting to come back downtown. They tore all the factories down and started to build a whole new neighborhood called Saint Lawrence after the market.
Okay.
Because the market managed to just survive all those years being surrounded by industry. So now this is a wonderful neighborhood. This is where I live. This is a lot of public housing, rent geared to your income. This is nonprofit housing and $1 million condos all mixed together.
That's so important.
Oh, and it's the way to go. Before, all the poor people lived in one area, all the rich people lived in one area. Now everyone lives together and we all share the market.
Un personaje fundamental para entender el underground, la contracultura y la formación de incontables artistas y personas creativas en Toronto es Reg Hart, un fanático del cine que tiene un archivo de material audiovisual impresionante. Cineforum, una sala de proyección cinematográfica montada en la sala de su casa, es el lugar para descubrir películas inesperadas y después tener conversaciones al respecto ahí mismo. Al enterarse de que yo venía de México, Reg me recibió con la primera película en tercera dimensión filmada en México, El corazón y la espada, una rareza de 1953 con Katy Jurado. Es el tipo de material que se proyecta aquí desde 1992.
What is Cineforum?
Well, the word cine means film. And the word forum, a forum is a platform for ideas. So the Cineforum is a platform for ideas expressed through cinema. And cinema embraces all of the arts. It embraces painting, it embraces sculpture, it embraces everything. So a Cineforum is a platform for ideas across the board.
So what kind of films do you show here?
Old films, new films, whatever strikes my fantasy. A few years ago, a young Mexican fellow came here and he said to me, why don't you show Alice in Wonderland, Walt Disney's Alice in Wonderland, to Pink Floyd's The Wall? And I said, that sounds interesting. So I started showing Alice in Wonderland to Pink Floyd's The Wall. And a lot of people responded to it. And of course, The Wall is all about staying out of school. And I loved that.
How did you start your collection of films and this archive?
Well, I was encouraged by my teachers to be a writer in school. And I saw film as the medium that print had been in the 19th century. And I began to read books on the art, business, culture, and history of the movies. And then I went to the movie theaters and said, can you bring in The Birth of a Nation? Can you bring in The Cabinet of Caligari? Can you show Nosferatu? They all looked at me like I was the one kid communist plot to put them out of business. Business people are the most boring people on earth. Well, I discovered the great joy of sharing things that I knew were great with absolute strangers who valued the experience. And that is more fun than anything I can imagine. And so I just embraced strangers.
Dice la gente de Toronto, medio en broma, medio en serio, que si como estudiante de cine o de comunicación nunca entrevistaste a Reg Hart, realmente fue como si no hubieras ido nunca a la escuela. Yo les puedo decir que en el ratito que pasé aquí aprendí mucho más que en semestres enteros de la carrera. Así de apasionante es escuchar a Reg, un rebelde que toda su vida ha hecho las cosas a su modo. También me emocionó platicar con Reg sobre Jane Jacobs, la primera gran activista por el derecho a la ciudad, una torontense célebre que era su amiga y que venía seguido al Cineforum. Si te apasiona el cine y las curiosidades audiovisuales, este es un lugar para tener en el radar.
Ojalá todas las ciudades tuvieran una librería como esta, especializada en temas de justicia social y diversidad, y no solo para personas adultas, sino para infancias y adolescencias. Another Story es uno de esos lugares de los que es difícil salir sin las manos llenas de nuevas lecturas e ideas.
¿Por dónde empezar a explorar esta librería? No es enorme, pero está retacada de títulos que inmediatamente quieres devorar. Una buena opción es preguntarle al personal sobre los temas que te interesan, porque siempre tienen buenas recomendaciones.
So I want to know everything about Another Story, like when, how, and why was it created?
So Another Story Bookshop was created 37 years ago by Sheila Kaufman, who was an activist, somebody on the left, who wanted to create a space for a bookstore dedicated to social justice, equity, and diversity. So she built this space over the course of many, many years, and it's become a hub for activists and artists and writers and people from the literary community. And it was really created to fill the gap that was in Toronto for activist bookshops, and bookshops that also had a focus for children and young adults. So she created this many, many years ago in a different part of Toronto called the Danforth. And about 15 years ago, we moved to our current location. We are one of Toronto's oldest independent bookshops. We host a number of book launches and events. We're very active with selling books to schools across Ontario. And we work very much with queer and trans, Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. Not just to stock their books, but in terms of the staff that we have, the events that we do, and the way that we work in the community. This is our graphic section, and we have a lot of amazing books here. One of our favorites is Squire. This is by Palestinian-American writer Nadia Shamas, and it's a fantasy book with an Arab main character. It's fantastic. We love it. One of our favorite books here is Junauda Petrus's Stars and the Blackness Between Them, which is a book that has won many awards, and it's a book about two queer and trans characters that is beautifully written. Yes, 15 is for Padded Cups. So this is a fantastic book by a Congolese Canadian writer. It's for young adults, and it's self-published. So this is one of the books that we, talk about when we support local writers. We love Sabrina Moella. It's a fantastic book for 15-year-olds. Phoenix the Greatest, which is by Marty Wilson Trudeau and Phoenix Wilson, is a beautiful new book about Phoenix who loves to go to powwows and loves to dance, and it's written by two spirited writers. So this is a very special book that's new that we're so excited about. This one here by Jessica McDiarmid, The Highway of Tears, is an excellent book looking at the history, looking at what's happened with missing, murdered, and Indigenous women in Canada. Something that many people have heard about but don't necessarily know what that means. So this is looking at the Highway of Tears in British Columbia.
La parte dirigida a niñas y a niños es fascinante para personas de todas las edades. Hay joyas de autoras y autores locales y de editoriales independientes de la región. Libros y publicaciones que no se consiguen fácilmente en otros lados.
From the store, one of our bags.
Ah, what a record!
From us to you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming. We're so honored that you came here and that,
Al noreste de la ciudad, completamente fuera de la ruta turística, está el barrio de Scarborough, que a primera vista no parece particularmente atractivo, pero nos dijeron que es el mejor lugar para probar comida de todo el mundo. Es como darle la vuelta al planeta a través de sus sabores y una muestra de la diversidad cultural de Toronto. La prioridad fue probar gastronomías internacionales que no se consiguen en la Ciudad de México. Así que la primera parada fue Spice is Right, que desde el nombre nos conquistó. Es un restaurante jamaicano con mucha personalidad, lleno de memorabilia y símbolos visuales del país caribeño, donde te reciben además con una gran sonrisa, mucha plática y pura buena onda.
How can I help you today?
I'm gonna have just one thing on your menu because I'm trying several places of this
Okay, all
area.
right. We got a jerk chicken.
Which one?
Jerk chicken.
La recomendación fue probar el jerk chicken, que es pollito marinado con chile panameño, que es un primo más dulce del chile habanero, pero igual de picoso, con ajo, cebolla, jengibre y otras especias. Se sirve con arroz y frijoles. Es una comida completa, llenadora y deliciosa. También se me antojaban el curry y los rotis, pero decidí administrar mi hambre y lanzarme al local de junto, Coffee Inn. Una de las gastronomías que siempre me han dado mucha curiosidad es la filipina, que por su historia mezcla sabores e influencias del sudeste asiático con la cocina española, la china y la mexicana y latinoamericana. Se antoja muchísimo.
So, do you think you can give me like a very small plate of of that one? What's the name of this?
This is curry.
So that's pork?
This pork, yeah.
Y acá en el Coffee Inn, de plano no me pude quedar con un solo platillo, porque los propietarios del restaurante, Eric y Jean Taninas, se emocionaron a la hora de compartir las delicias de su país conmigo. Todo estuvo buenísimo, pero hay que destacar el bak choy, un caldo con fideos y carne de cerdo. Muy sencillo, pero aromático, llenador, apapachador, buenísimo. Todo lo demás también me dejó maravillada. Y ya no me alcanzó el hambre para seguir probando cosas, pero tengo una visita pendiente en Scarborough. Uno de los museos más populares de Toronto es el Bata, dedicado exclusivamente a los zapatos. Y nos tocó una exposición para entender cómo nos convertimos en una sociedad tan obsesionada con esta prenda. Con una colección de más de 15,000 objetos y más de 1,000 zapatos en exhibición, este museo nos cuenta 4,500 años de historia universal a través del calzado en su exhibición permanente. Pero esta vez nos enfocamos en su muestra temporal, Obsessed, obsesionados, que habla de cómo los zapatos se convirtieron en objetos de deseo. Y de ahí nos pasamos a Future Now, sobre la industria de los tenis, que además de incorporar tecnología a la manufactura y a los diseños, ha creado modelos que solo existen en el metaverso, como accesorios para personajes virtuales o incluso NFTs.
So how is it like to be the curator of a shoe museum? Wow!
I know. It is truly a joy. Like every single day, I learn something new. I get to see really amazing shoes. And what I also really love is that everybody's had experience wearing shoes.
Exactly. It's something that you are related to.
Exactly.
Even if you don't want to.
Correct. Even if you think you're not interested, I can prove you are. Here you can see a very, very narrow pair of shoes, right?
Yeah, they don't look comfortable.
They don't look comfortable at all. And they were made because, in this manner, they're called straights. They're neither lefts nor rights. So these shoes were made in France for export to England. And they are part of that attempt to speed up production.
Okay.
Another invention was trying to deal with the sewing of leather soles to shoe uppers. Such labor-intensive work. Yeah. So somebody had a great idea, although it wasn't really that great, to use wooden pegs. Mm-hmm. Instead of sewing, they would pound in pegs, and this is a beautifully pegged pair of shoes. The problem is, you step in some water, but it did speed up production. But the thing that really changed everything, so this pair of sneakers dates to 1890.
Wow.
And once you have sneakers, you have to have reasons for sneakers. And so the YMCA is invented in the middle of the century, basketball. Talk about rubber. One of the things that the stabilization of rubber does is it allows for the invention of tires. And once tires are invented, bicycles are invented.
Wow, that's right.
This is the first vehicle that women are allowed to ride. This is a 1920s Louis Vuitton trunk just for your shoes.
Wow.
So if you were traveling...
Yeah, you need all of those.
Correct. Because if you're a lady, when you woke up, you need your morning slippers. Then you would need to wear something to breakfast. Then you would need to wear something for your walk. Then you would need to wear something for lunch, something for high tea, something for the beach, something. You needed different shoes for basically every hour of the day. The idea that shoe obsession is a thing becomes linked specifically to women. But in the 1990s, culture kind of runs with that concept, right? Yeah. Shoeaholic, shoe crazed. And this is really when you begin to see the real rise of shoe designers. Jimmy Choo, Manolo Blahnik, Christian Louboutin, Sex and the City, right? Brings their names to our lips. And this becomes a defining feature for femininity and also, in my opinion, problematic ideas of female power. And so one of the things that's so interesting about sneakers in the second half of the 20th century and masculinity is that, one, in New York City, this is where rap is started, breaking, form of competitive dance is happening, and 2 European companies. And then the other thing that happens in terms of collecting is the creation of scarcity, the idea of scarcity. We make 20 billion shoes a year.
Este museo es interesante desde el edificio del arquitecto Raymond Moriyama hasta el más inesperado de sus zapatos, con una curaduría que nos invita a ver de otra forma los mensajes e implicaciones de esta prenda de vestir tan cotidiana. El arte es una poderosa herramienta para desafiar los sistemas de opresión y para celebrar la diversidad. Eso hace Bodies in Bad Times Theater, el teatro queer que lleva más tiempo funcionando en el mundo. Desde 1979, en este fabuloso espacio, no solo se han montado incontables obras, sino que es un lugar seguro para que las personas LGBTIQ+ disfruten de la fiesta y de la noche. Acá hay actividades todo el año, no importa el frío o el calor que haga allá afuera.
So what are the origins of Buddies?
Yeah, so Buddies was founded in 1979. So we're just about 45 years old. It was founded by a group of folks who were really determined to center the queer voice, and specifically at that point, lesbian, gay voices. We didn't have a venue at that time. We were a roaming company, so we were going venue to venue, doing productions, presentations. But even at that point, developing new queer work was always sort of at the forefront of what we were doing. We moved into this space, our current home, in the early 90s and have been here for about 30 years. Over that time, we've really sort of focused on developing new work, producing and presenting queer artists, both locally, nationally, internationally, and then moving our work around the world as well. Alongside that sort of theater practice, we also have a long history of developing early in-craft, emerging artistic voices, and as well as community development.
This stone is a bone caught in the throat of a memory, a hole at the bottom.
We're not sure of which play or show you're going to be able to give us footage of or images of.
So a production that is currently on tour this season is Kinalik, The Sharp Tools, and that was created and performed by our previous artistic director, Evelyn Perry, alongside Luke Williamson Bathery, who is an artist from Nunavut. So that's up in the northern parts of Canada. And they actually met on an expedition through the Northwest Passage, and they developed the show. But this relationship between the north part of Canada and the south part of Canada.
A lo largo de estos años, lo más importante y valioso es la comunidad que se ha formado en torno a este proyecto. Y esta comunidad también existe en línea. En su sitio, buddiesinbadtimes.com, hay mucho material valioso para consumir desde casa, además de que les puedes seguir en sus redes sociales.
Hasta aquí llegó este itinerario especial de Toronto, pero nos vemos la próxima semana con más recomendaciones para aprovechar al máximo el tiempo libre.